The great news is that our new In the Hoop SkyLights technique is going to revolutionize how Drunkard's Path and the entire family of curved quilt blocks are made. I'm going to be showing you how to make 4 Drunkard's Path curved segments at a time, and all you need is your embroidery hoop, some butcher paper, 2 fabric squares, some spray starch, and some washable school glue. We're going to start out by hooping 2 squares of ordinary butcher paper with the shiny sides facing out. I already have my design downloaded to my embroidery machine, and I'm ready to stitch out Color Change 1. Color Change 1 gives us all the guides that we need to complete our 4 segments in a window. And that completes Color Change 1. I've placed the bullet tip on my Easy Fold pen, and I'm going to use it to trace the circles that will form the skylight. And trace the circle on the back side. I'm turning my hoop back over, and the next thing I'm going to do is clip the threads at the junctions between the circle and the horizontal and vertical guide. Next, I'm going to put one hand behind my circle to support it and use my fingernail to gently get my circle started. And I'm going to separate the circle from the background of the butcher paper to create a window. And I'll remove the rest of the circle from the front. And now that my circle's out, I'll take off the extra thread, and I'll put my circle in a safe place because I'm going to need it later. The next thing I'll be doing is positioning my fabric in the center of my hoop so that it covers the window. And then using a hot iron, I'm going to press the fabric so that it adheres to the butcher paper. Now that my fabric is positioned and in place, I'll turn my hoop over, make sure that it seems to be secured around the edges. Then I'll take my scissors and I will make a small snip about 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric. That will be my starter guide, and then I'll continue to cut a circle about 1/4 inch from the edge of the paper window. And one more snip to remove it. The next step that we'll be taking is to secure our 2 edges together. And I'll do that by placing the tip of my schoolhouse glue in the tip and putting a thin coat of glue along the edges and then finger pressing them together. And I have a thin flow restrictor. It's a stainless steel flow restrictor that I have on my glue bottle. And if you don't have one of these and you find that you are squirting too heavy on your glue, squirt your glue on an extra piece of butcher paper and apply it with a toothpick. The next step is to change out the tip on your Easy Fold pen and put your chisel tip back on, because this time we'd like to make a finer line. And we will draw a line right along the edge of the circle with our tip about half on the paper and half on the fabric. This is going to relax the fabric and help us get a beautifully perfect fold. Next, we're going to clip at about 1/4 of an inch intervals all the way around the circle. And when we do this, we want to leave almost a 1/16 of an inch between the paper and our clips. We finished clipping all the way around, and the next step we're going to be taking is spraying a bit of spray starch into a little plastic tray. Then with a flat brush, I'm going to paint a coat of spray starch on the back side of the fabric. Next, I'm going to fold the edges towards the back, and I'm going to iron them in place. I'm going to introduce a little pressing pad to help support my fabric and prevent it from stretching. Because we've already used the Easy Fold pin, the fabric knows exactly where it wants to crease, and all we need to do is use our fingers to guide it into position. We've finished going all the way around the circle, and what I'm going to do next is turn the circle over and give it a press from the other side because I can get it flatter. We're trying to get all of our edges secured against the butcher paper. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little check to make sure that all of my edges are nice and tight. And if I find a place that's not secured, then I will add a little bit of school glue and then press it one more time. So it looks like my edges are nice and tight, so I'm ready to go on to the next step. And in the next step, I'm going to apply a thin coat of school glue to all of my edges. Now that I have glue all the way around, I'm ready to get my second fabric. I've set my hoop down for a minute, and I'm going to prepare the fabric that will become the intersection of my curve for placement. And the way I'm going to do that is I will take the butcher paper circle that I saved from earlier, and I will center it on my fabric. Then I'm going to turn my hoop over, and I am going to position my hoop so that the window falls in the proper place. I'll finger press the edges of the circle to help set the glue, and I'll remove my circle. It's really important to keep these edges securely attached to the butcher paper and to each other as we proceed, so that we get a nice, crisp, smooth curve when we're all finished. So it looks like I'm okay, but I'm going to run one more check. And that's either with my fingernail or with a stylus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fingernail, and I'm going to run it around the edges, and anywhere I can get my fingernail under, I'm going to add just a touch more of glue. With that, I think I'm pretty tight, and yet I'm still going to press it one more time, and then we'll be returning to the sewing machine to stitch out color change 2. I've returned to my machine, and I'm ready to sew out color change 2. I've loosened my fabric from the butcher paper, and I have folded it back, and I folded it back only until I can see the perforated edge of the paper. I'm going to now sew a circle along that perforated edge exactly in the same place that the line was stitched before. And as I stitch, I will go slowly so that I can control this piece of fabric. And my only goal is to keep my fabric from getting caught under the needle. You don't need to pull, you don't need to guide, you just need to keep your fabric clear of the needle, and you will end up with a perfect circle. So here we go. I don't know how much of this you actually can see, but I'm just stitching right along that perforated edge. Being careful never to pull my fabric so hard that I loosen the bond between the two fabrics. And that completes the circle, and that completes color change too. I repositioned the camera, I gave my fabric a quick press, and now I'm ready to separate my 4 segments. I'm going to start by aligning the 1/2 inch edge of my ruler along the cutting guide, and as always using a secondary line across the bottom to make sure that I'm straight. And I'm going to cut. I will align my ruler so that I can cut through the vertical guide and the horizontal guide. My segments are now separated, and now I'm going to trim them so that they'll all have a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'll pick up the first one, and I will flip the fabric down on one side, and I'll flip it back on the other side, and my butcher paper will separate right out. Now I'm going to flip my fabric back so that I expose the clipped edges from our window, and I'm going to trim right along those edges. There's our 1/4 inch seam allowance. There is our perfect curve. And now we've finished one of our Drunkard's Path segments. I'm going to finish trimming, and I'll join you again. I finished trimming all of my segments, and I've given them a quick press, and now as you can see they're ready to be combined into a Drunkard's Path block. The Drunkard's Path pattern is completed by making circles that are reversed colors. So in the example that you just watched me make, we used the dark flower for our outer circle. In our side pieces, we have used the light blue from the center of the first circle for our outer circle. I hope you're as excited about seeing this new technique as we were to bring it to you. We'll be releasing many new designs that take advantage of this technique in the next few months, so visit often to see the newest releases.